Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to introduce our topic, Morphology of Flowering Plants. In this session, we'll explore the fascinating structures and forms of flowering plants, understand their parts, and see how they contribute to plant life. So, let's get started and dive into this interesting world of plant morphology. Let's now move on to slide 2, which covers some fundamental concepts about plant structure and classification. First, we have the family Fabaceae, a significant plant family that includes beans, peas, and lentils, known for their characteristic pod fruits. Next, we look at the concept of the fruit, which is the mature ovary of a flower, playing a crucial role in seed protection and dispersal. Moving on, Aestivation refers to the arrangement of sepals or petals in a flower bud before it opens, an important feature for identifying plant species. We then see modification of leaf, which involves changes in leaf structure to adapt to different environmental conditions, such as storage or support. Similarly, aerial modification of stem highlights how stems can adapt for support, storage, or climbing, like in vines or cacti. Moving to the next point, thank you. This is simply a way to conclude the section and appreciate your attention before we proceed further. Next, we have a semi-technical description of a typical flowering plant, which helps us understand the general organization of flowering plants, including their reproductive structures. Placentation refers to how the ovules are arranged within the ovary, which varies among different families. Aestivation, as mentioned earlier, is again about floral bud arrangement, important for taxonomy. We also see asymmetry, which describes flowers that lack symmetry, making them distinct and easier to identify. Phylloxy is the arrangement of leaves on a stem or branch, which can be alternate, opposite, or whorled. Moving on, family Liliaceae is another important family that includes lilies, onions, and garlic, characterized by bulbous structures and specific floral features. The next point, the stem aerial part of the plant, highlights the importance of the stem in supporting leaves, flowers, and fruits, as well as conducting nutrients. Structure of monocot seed explains how monocots like grasses and lilies have seeds with a single cotyledon, which influences their growth and development. Then, family Solanaceae includes plants like tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplants, notable for their economic and nutritional importance. Gynoecium refers to the collectively fused stamens and pistils in a flower, which is vital in understanding flower structure. The flower, of course, is the reproductive unit that attracts pollinators and facilitates reproduction. Moving forward, the seed is the plant's way of ensuring propagation, containing the embryo and stored food. Venation describes the pattern of veins in a leaf, essential for identification and understanding leaf function. Androecium involves the male reproductive parts, mainly stamens, of the flower. Next, modification of root highlights how roots can adapt for storage or support, such as in taproots or tubers. Inflorescence. Racemose inflorescence refers to a type of flower cluster where flowers bloom from the bottom upwards, common in many plants. The leaf is a vital photosynthetic organ, often modified for various functions. Finally, the root is the foundational underground part that anchors the plant and absorbs water and nutrients. All these points connect to give us a comprehensive understanding of plant structure, classification, and adaptations, forming the core of our overall theme of plant morphology and taxonomy. In most dicotyledonous plants, the process begins with the direct elongation of the radicle, which is the embryonic root. This elongation results in the formation of the primary root that grows downward inside the soil, anchoring the plant firmly. As it develops, the primary root starts to produce lateral roots, which can be of various orders. These are called secondary, tertiary roots, and so on. These lateral roots branch out from the primary root, increasing the root system's overall surface area and efficiency in water and nutrient absorption. When we look at the entire root system, especially in plants like mustard, it's known as the tap root system, characterized by a prominent primary root with branching lateral roots. This system plays a crucial role in supporting the plant's stability and resource uptake, which ties directly into our broader discussion on plant structure and growth strategies. In monocotyledonous plants, the primary root doesn't stick around for long. Instead, it's quickly replaced by a large number of roots that all work together. These roots typically originate from the base of the stem, forming what we call a fibrous root system. A great example of this is the wheat plant. The fibrous root system is quite different from the tap root system seen in dicots. It provides a dense network of roots that help in effective absorption of nutrients and water, and also offer good stability to the plant. This adaptation is especially useful in environments where the soil is shallow or where quick establishment is needed. So, understanding this root system helps us appreciate how monocots are well suited to their habitats and how their root structure supports their growth and survival. Today, I want to talk about a fascinating aspect of plant roots. In some plants, like grass, monstera, and the banyan tree, roots don't always emerge from the usual place, which is the radicle. Instead, they arise from different parts of the plant, and these are called adventitious roots. This type of root system is quite special because it allows the plant to adapt and thrive in various environments. For example, in the case of the banyan tree, adventitious roots help support its massive structure by anchoring it more securely. So, understanding adventitious roots is key to appreciating how diverse and adaptable plant systems can be, especially within the broader context of plant survival and growth strategies. Let's take a closer look at some interesting root modifications. First, we have the stilt root, which provides extra support to plants like mangroves, helping them stay upright in soft, muddy soils. Moving on, the respiratory root of rhizophora is specialized for gas exchange, allowing the plant to breathe in waterlogged environments. Next, we see the fusiform root, which is thick and spindle-shaped, often involved in storing nutrients. The prop root is another fascinating adaptation. These roots grow from the stem and help stabilize the plant, especially in windy or unstable soils. Then there's the napiform root, which is rounded and bulbous, typically used for storing large amounts of food. Similarly, the conical root has a cone shape, also often involved in storage functions. Finally, we look at underground modifications for storage of food. These roots become swollen and serve as reservoirs, helping plants survive periods of scarcity. All these modifications highlight how plants adapt their roots to meet specific environmental challenges and functions, which fits into our broader discussion on how plants modify their structures for survival and efficiency. The stem can be defined as the ascending part of the plant that moves upwards, developing from the plumule. It's divided into segments called nodes and internodes, which you can see in the diagram. An important characteristic of the stem is that it's positively phototropic, meaning it naturally grows towards light sources. The primary functions of the stem are quite vital. First, it produces and supports lateral appendages such as branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits, helping the plant spread out and maximize its exposure to sunlight. Second, it conducts water and minerals from the roots to different parts of the plant, acting like a highway for essential nutrients. And third, it transports food produced in the leaves to all parts of the plant, ensuring each area gets the energy it needs to grow and thrive. Overall, the stem is essentially the aerial part of the plant, its main support and transportation system, integral to the plant's growth and development. Let's take a closer look at some common underground modifications of stems used for storage and vegetative propagation. First, we have the corm of colocasia, which is a swollen storage structure that helps the plant survive adverse conditions. Then, there's the bulb of an onion, a compact, layered structure that stores food and enables the plant to grow again. Next, we see the rhizome of ginger, which is a horizontal underground stem that stores nutrients and can give rise to new shoots. We also have the tuber of potato, a thickened underground part that stores food and can be used to propagate new plants. These structures are essential because they serve two main purposes: storing food to help the plant survive tough times and acting as means of vegetative propagation, allowing us to grow new plants from these underground parts. Understanding these modifications highlights how plants adapt their stems underground for survival and reproduction, fitting into our broader discussion on plant survival strategies. Today, we're going to look at a fascinating modification of the stem called the tendril. Essentially, it's a transformation of the axillary bud into a thin, wiry, and highly sensitive structure. These tendrils are incredibly useful because they help the plant attach itself to supports and climb. You'll mainly find them in plants with weaker stems, where climbing and support are essential for growth. For example, in plants like cucurbita, think cucumbers, gourds, and even grapevines, the extra axillary buds are modified into tendrils. This adaptation allows these plants to ascend and reach sunlight more effectively. So, in summary, tendrils are specialized structures that originate from modified stems, playing a crucial role in the plant's ability to climb and stabilize itself in its environment. Now, let's look at some interesting examples of vegetative propagation. In plants like Pistia and Eichhornia, you'll notice that a lateral branch with short internodes arises, forming a rosette of leaves along with a tuft of roots, which we call an offset. This allows the plant to propagate horizontally and quickly establish new growth. Moving on to grasses and strawberries, these plants spread through underground stems known as runners. When the older plants die off, new plants develop at different points along these runners, enabling rapid and widespread propagation. In mint and jasmine, you'll see a different strategy. A slender lateral branch grows from the base of the main stem and, after reaching the air, touches the ground. This structure, called a stolon, helps the plant extend its reach and produce new shoots from the point of contact. Now let's consider the filiclade, which is quite fascinating. In plants like Opuntia, the stem has become flattened and green, functioning much like leaves. These structures have distinct nodes and internodes and are a modified form of stem, optimized for water storage and photosynthesis. Some plants even modify their stems into fleshy, cylindrical structures, for example, euphorbia, which are specially adapted to environmental conditions. Finally, I want to mention thorns. Thorns are hard, pointed structures that develop from modified axillary buds. They serve primarily as a defense mechanism, protecting the plant from browsing animals. Examples include citrus and bougainvillea. Thorns are an important adaptation for survival, especially in environments where herbivores are prevalent. In banana, pineapple, and chrysanthemum, the lateral branch has a very interesting origin. It starts from the basal and underground part of the main stem, which means it originates near the base and beneath the soil's surface. From there, it grows horizontally beneath the soil, spreading out sideways. Eventually, it comes out obliquely upward, giving rise to a leafy shoot. This type of growth is a great example of basal modification, where parts of the plant adapt to grow in specific ways for survival and reproduction. Understanding these modifications helps us see how different plants develop specialized structures to thrive in their environments. Let's take a closer look at the leaf. The lamina, or leaf blade, is the green, expanded part of the leaf that you see. It contains veins and veinlets, which are essential for the leaf's functions. The most prominent vein running down the center is called the midrib. These veins are not just for support. They also serve as channels for transporting water, minerals, and food materials throughout the leaf. Moving on, the petiole is a stalk that helps attach the leaf blade to the stem and plays a crucial role in positioning the leaf to maximize light capture. A typical leaf consists of three main parts: the leaf base, the petiole, and the lamina. The leaf base connects the leaf to the stem and can sometimes bear small leaf-like structures called stipules. In monocotyledons, the leaf base often expands into a sheath that partially or completely covers the stem. In some leguminous plants, the leaf base becomes swollen, forming what is called a pulvinus, which helps in movements like leaf folding. Generally, a leaf is a flattened structure that develops at the node of the stem. It usually bears a bud in its axil, the angle between the leaf and the stem, which can develop into a branch later. Leaves originate from the shoot apical meristems. The growth points at the tip of the plant. They are typically arranged in an acropetal order, meaning from the base towards the tip. And finally, it's important to remember that leaves are the most vital vegetative organs for photosynthesis. the process by which plants make their food. This entire structure is fundamental to the plant's survival and growth. Let's talk about venation in leaves. Leaves of dicotyledonous plants typically have reticulate venation, which means they form a network of interconnected veins. On the other hand, most monocotyledons are characterized by parallel venation, where the veins run parallel to each other within the leaf lamina. When the veins run side by side in a straight line, that's called parallel venation. Conversely, when the veinlets form a network, creating a web-like pattern, that's known as reticulate venation. And to clarify, the overall arrangement of these veins and veinlets in the leaf lamina is what we refer to as venation. Understanding these patterns helps us identify and differentiate between different types of plants, which ties into the broader theme of plant structure and classification. A leaf is said to be simple when its lamina is entire, meaning the margin is smooth without any indentations or lobes. Alternatively, if the lamina is incised, the key point is that these incisions do not touch the midrib. So even if there are cuts or lobes, as long as they don't reach the central vein, the leaf still qualifies as simple. This distinction helps us understand leaf structure better, especially when identifying different types of leaves in various plants. It's an important concept because it relates to how leaves grow and how they're classified within plant taxonomy. So remember, simple leaves can have smooth edges or incised margins, but the incisions must stay away from the midrib for the leaf to be considered simple. Let's take a closer look at some common types of compound leaves. First, we have the palmately compound leaf, like the neem tree. In this type, the leaflets are attached at a common point, which is at the tip of the petiole, giving it a shape similar to the palm of a hand. This arrangement is quite distinctive and easy to recognize. Next, we have the pinnately compound leaf. Here, the leaflets are arranged along a central axis called the rachis, which is essentially the midrib of the leaf. You can think of it as a feather, with leaflets attached on either side of the rachis, making it look elongated and linear. Now, when we talk about a leaf being compound, it means the lamina, or the leaf blade, is divided into multiple leaflets. This division occurs when the incisions reach all the way up to the midrib, breaking the leaf into several parts. There are two main types of compound leaves, palmately and pinnately, which I just explained. Recognizing these types helps us understand how different plants adapt their leaf structure for various functions, whether it's maximizing light capture or reducing wind resistance. So, understanding these basic forms is fundamental as we explore plant diversity further. Let's take a closer look at how leaves are arranged on a stem or branch. Imagine a single leaf emerging at each node, but not directly opposite each other. Instead, they arise in an alternating pattern. This pattern is what we call alternate phyllotaxy. It's a fascinating way plants organize their leaves to maximize sunlight exposure and space efficiency. Phyllotaxy, in general, refers to the arrangement of leaves along the stem, and understanding this pattern helps us grasp how plants optimize their growth. There are three main types of phyllotaxy, and today we're focusing on the concept of alternate phyllotaxy, which is just one of these patterns. Recognizing these arrangements allows us to appreciate the intricate ways plants adapt and thrive in their environments. Now let's look at a specific type of leaf arrangement called opposite phyllotaxy. In this pattern, a pair of leaves arises at each node, and importantly, these leaves are positioned directly opposite to each other. Imagine standing at a branch point, and you see two leaves growing out on opposite sides of the stem. This is characteristic of opposite phyllotaxy. For example, plants like calotropes and guava exhibit this leaf arrangement. The key point here is that at every node, instead of a single leaf or a spiral arrangement, you find these pairs directly facing each other. This arrangement can influence how the plant captures sunlight and how the branches develop. Understanding this pattern is important because it helps us recognize different types of leaf arrangements, which can have implications for plant identification, their growth habits, and how they adapt to their environment. So, whenever you see two leaves emerging opposite each other at a node, you can identify it as opposite phyllotaxy, an elegant example of nature's symmetry and efficiency. Let's talk about a specific type of phyllotaxy called whorled. When more than 2 leaves arise at each node, and they form a circular arrangement or a whorl, we call it whorled phyllotaxy. An example of this is the plant Alstonia. So in essence, when you see multiple leaves emerging together in a circle at a single point on the stem, that's a clear sign of whorled phyllotaxy. This pattern plays an interesting role in how plants organize their leaves for optimal sunlight exposure and other functions. Let's talk about how leaves can be modified to serve different functions in plants. Some plants have leaves that are adapted to catch insects, which is a fascinating example of how plants can evolve to get nutrients. For instance, the pitcher plant and Venus flytrap have leaves that form trap structures to lure and digest insects. On the other hand, the fleshy leaves of onions and garlic are modified to store food, acting as energy reserves for the plant. In some plants, like Australian acacia, the leaves are quite small and short-lived. In these cases, the petioles, the stalks that attach the leaf to the stem, expand, turn green, and take on the role of synthesizing food through photosynthesis. Another interesting adaptation is leaves turning into spines, such as in cacti. These spines are primarily for defense, protecting the plant from herbivores. And then, some plants modify their leaves into tendrils, like the pea plant, which helps them climb and support themselves by wrapping around other structures. So, as you can see, leaf modifications are diverse and serve various purposes, be it catching prey, storing food, defending, or climbing, all of which highlight the incredible adaptability of plants. Let's talk about indefinite growth. In many plants, the main floral axis, which is essentially the central stem of the inflorescence, never actually terminates in a flower. Instead, it continues to grow indefinitely, producing more flowers over time. This is a key feature that helps distinguish different types of inflorescences. Now, when we look at the arrangement of flowers along this axis, we often see what's called a cropetal order, where new flowers form at the apex or tip, and older ones are found lower down. Alternatively, in some cases, we observe centripetal order, where flowers develop from the outer parts inward. These patterns are important because they give us clues about how the inflorescence develops and its overall structure. Finally, moving on to our specific focus today, we're going to delve into racemose inflorescences. This is a type of inflorescence where the main axis keeps growing, and the flowers are arranged on stalks that arise laterally. It's a common pattern in many flowering plants and plays a significant role in how flowers are displayed and pollinated. Understanding these concepts helps us appreciate the diversity and complexity of plant reproductive strategies. Let's take a closer look at this slide. First, we see that the growth is limited, which means the plant's floral axis doesn't keep growing indefinitely. Instead, the main floral axis terminates in a flower, serving as the endpoint of that growth. Moving on, the concept of basipetal or centrifugal order is important here. This refers to the pattern in which flowers develop, starting from the center or base and progressing outward. Finally, we have the term cymose inflorescence. This is a type of flowering arrangement where the main axis ends in a flower, and subsequent flowers develop on side branches or pedicels, often in a specific order. Understanding this helps us see how certain inflorescences are organized, which is key when identifying plant types. Overall, this slide highlights how the structure and development pattern of these inflorescences influence the plant's flowering display and reproductive strategy. Now, let's turn our attention to the concept of the flower. When we think about a flower, we're looking at a structure that beautifully exemplifies growth, complexity, and harmony. The flower is often seen as a symbol of development, representing how different parts come together to create something vibrant and complete. It's made up of various components, petals, stamens, pistils, that work in concert, much like the different elements we see in our own projects or teams. Each part has a unique role, but together, they form a whole that's both functional and aesthetically pleasing. This idea ties back to our overall theme, the importance of interconnectedness and collaboration. Just as a flower relies on the harmony of its parts to thrive, our success depends on how well different aspects of our work integrate. So, when we focus on the flower, we're reminded of the beauty and strength that come from unity and balance. It's a powerful visual metaphor for growth, innovation, and the potential that arises when all parts work together seamlessly. All right, let's explore flower symmetry. We have two main types to consider. First, zygomorphic flowers, which are bilaterally symmetrical. Think of flowers like pea, gulmohar, bean, and cassia. These flowers can be divided into two equal halves along a single plane, giving a mirror image on both sides. This kind of symmetry often suggests specialized pollination strategies, attracting specific pollinators. On the other hand, we have actinomorphic flowers, which are radially symmetrical. Examples include mustard, datura, and chili. These flowers can be divided along multiple planes through the center, and each division results in mirror image halves. This symmetry tends to make the flower more accessible to a variety of pollinators, emphasizing generalist pollination. Understanding these types of symmetry is important because it helps us grasp how flowers have evolved different structures to attract and facilitate pollination efficiently. It's a fascinating aspect of floral diversity that connects directly to how plants adapt to their environments and pollinators. Let's talk about the structure of a typical flower. It has 4 different types of whorls, which are arranged successively on the swollen end of the stalk, known as the receptacle. These 4 whorls are the calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynecium. Now, when a flower contains both the androecium, which is the male part, and the gynecium, the female part, we call it bisexual. On the other hand, if a flower has only one of these, either the stamen or the carpel, it's considered unisexual. Moving on to symmetry, a flower is said to be asymmetric if it can't be divided into 2 identical halves by any vertical plane passing through its center. For example, the flower of canna is asymmetric. This kind of asymmetry is an interesting feature because it highlights the diversity in flower structure and form, which can be important in classification and understanding pollination strategies. So, understanding these basic concepts helps us appreciate the complexity and variety within the plant kingdom. Estivation is the way in which the petals and sepals are arranged in a flower. It's a key aspect of flower structure that can tell us a lot about how different plants have adapted to their environments. Essentially, it refers to the pattern of how these parts come together before the flower blooms. Understanding estivation helps us identify and classify plants, as different species have characteristic arrangements. It also plays a role in the flower's development and can influence how effectively it attracts pollinators. So, in the bigger picture of plant biology, estivation connects to how plants survive, reproduce, and evolve. Now let's look at the different types of estivation. First, we have vexillary or papilionaceous estivation, which is seen in flowers like peas and beans. In this type, there are 5 petals. The largest, called the standard, overlaps the 2 lateral petals, known as wings. These wings, in turn, overlap the 2 smallest anterior petals, called the keel. This arrangement gives the flower a butterfly-like appearance, which is why it's called papilionaceous. Next, we have twisted estivation, typical of flowers like hibiscus, lady's finger, and cotton. Here, if you look at the margins of the petals or sepals, you'll notice that one margin overlaps the next in a particular direction, creating a twisted look. Then there's imbricate estivation, seen in plants like calotropes. In this case, the margins of the petals or sepals overlap each other, but not in any specific direction. It's more of an irregular, overlapping pattern without a defined sequence. Finally, valvate estivation occurs when the petals or sepals just touch each other at the margins without overlapping at all. Think of it as a gentle meeting point, like pages of a book just touching along the edges. Understanding these different types helps us identify and classify flowers based on how their petals or sepals are arranged during blooming. Let's explore the different arrangements of stamens in flowers. When stamens are united to more than 2 bundles, we call this condition polyadelphous, as seen in citrus fruits. If they are united to just 2 bundles, it's known as diadelphous, like in peas. And when all the stamens are fused into a single bundle, that's monadelphous, which we observe in the China rose. Stamens can also be united to each other, and sometimes they attach to the perianth, which is the outer floral whorl. When this happens, the stamens are described as epiphyllous, like in lilies. It's also important to note that a sterile stamen, which doesn't produce pollen, is called a staminode. Now, stamens may be free from each other, in which case we call them polyandrous, meaning multiple stamens are separate. When stamens are attached directly to the petals, the term used is epipetalous, like in brinjal. Finally, the pollen itself is produced in pollen sacs located inside the anther, which is a key part of the androecium, or the male part of the flower. Let's explore the differences between syncarpous and apocarpous gynoecia. When a flower has more than one carpel, these can either be free or fused. If the carpels are free, as you see in lotus and rose, we call that apocarpous. On the other hand, when the carpels are fused together, as in mustard and tomato, we refer to that as syncarpous. After fertilization, the ovules inside the ovary develop into seeds, and the ovary itself matures into the fruit. This process is crucial because it connects the reproductive structures to fruit development, which is vital for seed dispersal. Now, focusing on the gynoecium, the female reproductive part of the flower, it is made up of one or more carpels. Each carpel has three main parts: the stigma, style, and ovary. The ovary is the enlarged basal part that contains the ovules, which are attached to a cushion-like structure called the placenta. The style is an elongated tube that connects the ovary to the stigma, which is usually at the tip of the style. The stigma is the receptive surface where pollen grains land and begin the process of fertilization. Understanding these parts helps us see how the flower's reproductive system is organized to facilitate successful pollination and seed production. Now, let's move on to slide 29, which introduces the concept of placentation. The arrangement of ovules within the ovary is known as placentation. This is a crucial aspect because it influences how the ovules are exposed and how they develop into seeds. Different plants have various types of placentation, such as basal, parietal, axil, and free central, each with unique arrangements. Understanding placentation helps us grasp how reproductive structures are organized in different species, which is important for both botanical classification and practical applications like agriculture. Throughout this presentation, we've been exploring the structure and function of flowers, and placentation is a key part of how flowers ensure successful reproduction. So remember, the way ovules are arranged inside the ovary plays a significant role in the plant's reproductive strategy. Today, I will explain the different types of placentation, which is an important aspect of flower anatomy. First, we have basal placentation, where the placenta develops at the base of the ovary, and a single ovule is attached there. An example of this is sunflower or marigold. Next, we come to free central placentation, which occurs when the ovules are born on the central axis of the ovary, and there are no septa dividing it. Dianthus and primrose are good examples of this type. Moving on to parietal placentation, here the ovules develop on the inner wall of the ovary or on its periphery. Examples include China rose, tomato, and lemon. Then there is axil placentation, where the placenta is positioned in the center of a multilocular ovary, and ovules are attached to it. Pea is a classic example of this type. Finally, we have marginal placentation, where the placenta forms a ridge along the ventral surface of the ovary, and ovules are born in 2 rows on this ridge. This type is typical in legumes like beans. Understanding these different placentation types helps us grasp how ovules are arranged within the ovary, which is crucial for classification and understanding fruit development. Within the seed coat, you will find the embryo, which is made up of the embryonal axis and 2 cotyledons. The cotyledons are essentially packed with reserve food materials that nourish the developing plant. At each end of the embryonal axis, there is the radicle, which will become the root, and the plumule, which will develop into the shoot. In some seeds, like castor, the endosperm forms as a result of double fertilization and serves as a food-storing tissue. However, in seeds such as beans, grams, and peas, the endosperm is absent in the mature seed, and these are called non-endospermous seeds. Now let's talk about the outer covering of the seed coat. It has two layers, the outer testa and the inner tegmen. The hilum is a scar on the seed coat that marks the point where the seed was attached to the fruit during development. Just above the hilum, you'll notice a small pore called the micropyle, which plays a role in water entry during germination. Moving on to some fruit examples, in mango, the pericarp is well differentiated into three parts: the outer thin epicarp, the middle fleshy and edible mesocarp, and the inner hard endocarp. In coconut, which is also a drupe, the mesocarp becomes fibrous, giving it that distinctive husk. Finally, the fruit itself consists of a wall called the pericarp and the seed inside. The pericarp can be either dry or fleshy. When it is thick and fleshy, it differentiates into the epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. Both mango and coconut develop from a monocarpillary superior ovary and are typically single-seeded. So, understanding these structures helps us grasp how seeds and fruits develop, store nutrients, and prepare for germination, which ties back to the overall theme of plant reproductive strategies. Let's take a closer look at the structure of a typical monocot seed. It has a short axis with a plumule at one end and a radicle at the other. The plumule is the part that will develop into the shoot, while the radicle becomes the root. These are enclosed in protective sheaths called the coleoptile for the plumule and the coleoryza for the radicle. Most monocot seeds, like those of cereals such as maize, are endospermic, meaning they have a significant amount of stored food inside the seed to support early growth. However, there are exceptions like orchids, which are non-endospermic, so they lack that stored food reserve. In cereal seeds, you'll notice that the seed coat is usually membranous and often fused with the fruit wall, making it quite integrated with the surrounding structure. The endosperm itself is quite bulky and acts as the main food reserve for the developing embryo. Surrounding the endosperm is a proteinous layer called the alurone layer, which plays a key role during germination by breaking down stored nutrients. The embryo itself is small and tucked into a groove at one end of the endosperm, with a large, shield-shaped cotyledon known as the scutellum. This structure is crucial for absorbing nutrients from the endosperm and supporting seedling growth. Understanding this structure is fundamental because it highlights how monocots are uniquely adapted for rapid germination and growth, which ties into their overall survival strategy in various environments. Let's take a closer look at the floral formula. As you can see, the fusion of floral parts is indicated by enclosing the figure within brackets, while adhesion is shown by a line drawn above the symbols of the floral parts. This helps us understand how the parts are arranged and connected in different flowers. For the symbols, the sign represents an actinomorphic flower, which means it has radial symmetry, like a sunflower or a daisy. The percent sign indicates a zygomorphic flower, meaning it has bilateral symmetry, like a pea flower or an orchid. Recognizing these symbols helps us quickly identify the flower's symmetry type. In the floral formula, you'll also notice abbreviations for various floral parts. BR stands for bracteate, indicating the presence of bracts. K is for calyx, the sepals, C for corolla, the petals, P for perianth, which includes both sepals and petals, A for androecium, the stamens, and G for gynecium, the pistils. Additionally, G appears twice, once for a superior ovary and once for an inferior ovary, showing their different positions relative to other floral parts. This detailed notation provides a compact way to describe the structure of a flower comprehensively. Now, moving on to the semi-technical description of a typical flowering plant, this overview helps us understand the general features and organization of such plants. By analyzing the floral formula, we can better appreciate the diversity and complexity of flowering plants and how their structure relates to their function and classification within the plant kingdom. Let's take a closer look at the vegetative characters of the Fabaceae family. These plants typically include trees, shrubs, and herbs, and one of their key features is that their roots often have root nodules. These nodules are important because they help with nitrogen fixation, which enriches the soil. Moving up to the stem, you'll notice that it can be either erect, standing upright, or climbing, which allows the plant to reach for sunlight or support itself on other structures. Now, the leaves are quite diverse within this family. They can be alternate, meaning they grow on opposite sides of the stem but in an alternating pattern. They can also be pinnately compound, where the leaf is divided into smaller leaflets arranged along a central rachis, or they can be simple, just a single leaf. A notable feature is the leaf base, which is often pulvinate, meaning it has a small, cushion-like swelling that can help the leaf fold or move. Many Fabaceae leaves are stipulate, which means they have stipules or small leaf-like appendages at the base of the leaf stalk. Lastly, the venation pattern is reticulate, forming a network of interconnected veins throughout the leaf, which is typical for many dicot plants. All these vegetative traits, from root nodules to leaf arrangement and venation, are essential in identifying and understanding plants within the Fabaceae family. Let's take a closer look at Indigofera. It is primarily used as a dye plant, and some common pulses associated with it include gram, arhar, sem, mung, and soybean. These are important because they form part of our agricultural and nutritional landscape. When we examine the seed, we see that it comes from an ovary that is superior, monocarpellary, and unilocular with many ovules. The style is single, which is a key feature to note. Moving on to the gynecium, it consists of 5 petals that are polypetalous and exhibit a papilionaceous, or butterfly-shaped, structure. This includes a posterior standard petal, 2 lateral wings, and 2 anterior petals forming a keel that encloses the stamens and pistil. The vexillary aestivation describes the arrangement of these petals. The corolla of the flower is bisexual and zygomorphic, meaning it has symmetrical features along one plane, which is quite characteristic of many legumes. The floral structure is quite complex, but fascinating. They're typically 4 to 5 petals with a floral formula that helps us understand their chemical and structural makeup. Now, talking about the fruit, it is a legume that usually contains 10 seeds and is diadelphous, meaning the stamens are arranged in 2 groups. The anthers are dithecous, with 2 theci. The andrecium, which is the collective term for the stamens, usually comprises 9 plus 1 arrangement, which is typical in these plants. The sepals are 5, gamospalous, meaning they're fused together, and have imbricate aestivation, which refers to how the sepals overlap before opening. The calyx is racemose, indicating the way the flowers are arranged on the stem. Finally, the inflorescence is a raceme, a simple and common flower arrangement. This comprehensive understanding of Indigofera's floral characters helps us connect how its structure influences its use as a dye and its significance in agriculture and medicine, especially with related crops like soybean and groundnut, which are major sources of edible oil. Overall, these features highlight the botanical intricacies that define Indigofera and its importance in various fields. Let's take a look at some of the diverse uses of the Fabaceae family. For ornamental purposes, plants like lupin and sweet pea are popular choices because of their beautiful flowers and attractive foliage. These are often used in gardens and landscape designs to add color and visual interest. Moving on, some members like Sesbania and Trifolium are valuable as fodder crops. They provide nutritious feed for livestock, which is crucial for sustainable agriculture. Sunhemp is another interesting example. It's used both as a fodder crop and as a green manure to improve soil fertility. When it comes to fibers, certain Fabaceae plants also serve as sources of natural fibers, which can be used in textiles and other materials. Overall, the Fabaceae family is incredibly versatile, offering a wide range of applications from decorative to agricultural and industrial uses, highlighting its importance in various sectors and its contribution to sustainable practices. Plants in this family are mostly herbs and shrubs, and in some cases they can be small trees. When we look at the stems, they are usually herbaceous, meaning soft and green and rarely woody. They tend to be aerial, growing above the ground, and have an erect and cylindrical shape. These stems can be branched, and they may be solid or hollow. Sometimes they can be hairy, or they might be smooth and hairless, which we call glabrous. An interesting point is that some plants, like potatoes, have underground stems. In the case of potatoes, the species is Solanum tuberosum. Moving on to the leaves, they are generally arranged alternately on the stem. They are mostly simple, meaning each leaf is a single, undivided unit. Sometimes you might see pinnately compound leaves, but that's quite rare in this family. They are exstipulate, which means they lack stipules, those small leaf-like appendages at the base of the leaf stalk. The venation, or the pattern of veins in the leaf, is reticulate, forming a network of interconnected veins. Connecting these features to the overall theme, understanding these vegetative characters helps us identify plants within the Solanaceae family and appreciate their diversity. Recognizing these traits is key to distinguishing members of this family from others. Let's take a closer look at some key floral features. First, the petals are typically 5 in number and are united, which means they form a tube or a bell shape. They also exhibit valvate aestivation, where the petals meet at the edges without overlapping. Moving on to the corolla, it's bicarpellary and syncarpous, indicating the carpels are fused into a single unit, with the ovary located above the other floral parts. This is what we call a superior ovary. The ovary is bilocular, meaning it has 2 chambers, and the placentas inside are swollen with many ovules, suggesting a high potential for seed production. Now, regarding the gynoecium, it consists of 5 sepals that are united and persistent, also showing valvate aestivation, similar to the petals. The calyx, in this case, is quite characteristic. The stamens are 5 in number, and they are epipetalous, which means they are attached to the petals or the corolla tube itself. When we look at the androecium, it's bisexual, meaning each flower contains both male and female reproductive organs, and the flowers are actinomorphic, or radially symmetrical, which is often associated with ease of pollination. The overall flower structure is usually solitary and can be found either in the axils of the leaves or arranged in cymes, similar to what we see in Solanum. Finally, considering the inflorescence, many of these plants feature a variety of arrangements, but the key takeaway is that their floral characters are quite consistent and integral to their identification and classification. These features not only define the plant's reproductive strategy, but also connect to the broader theme of floral diversity and adaptation. Many plants belonging to this family are incredibly versatile and play a significant role in our daily lives. For example, we have common food sources like tomato, brinjal, and potato, which are staples in many cuisines around the world. Then there's chili, which not only adds flavor but also has a medicinal and preservative value. Speaking of medicine, plants like belladonna and ashwagandha are well known for their therapeutic properties and are used in traditional medicine systems. Tobacco, although often associated with smoking, is also a fumigatory plant, historically used for its aromatic and insect-repelling qualities. Lastly, many plants in this family, such as petunia, are valued as ornamentals, enhancing the beauty of gardens and homes. So, as we can see, the Solanaceae family has a broad spectrum of economic importance, contributing to food, medicine, industry, and aesthetics, which ties into our overall understanding of plant diversity and their significance to human life. Let's talk about the family commonly called the lily family. This name is quite fitting because it's a characteristic and well-known representative of monocotyledonous plants. These plants are distributed all around the world, which shows just how widespread and diverse they are. When we think about monocots, the lily family stands out as a prime example. It's important to recognize their global presence and their significance in both natural ecosystems and human cultivation. Understanding this family helps us appreciate the diversity within the monocots and their role in plant taxonomy. So, as we move forward, keep in mind how this family exemplifies the key features of monocots and their widespread distribution across the globe. Perennial herbs with underground bulbs, corms, or rhizomes are quite fascinating. These structures allow the plants to survive from year to year, even through unfavorable conditions. The bulbs, corms, and rhizomes serve as storage organs, helping the plant conserve energy and nutrients. Moving on to the leaves, you'll notice they are mostly basal, meaning they emerge at the base of the plant, which is common in many herbaceous species. They are arranged alternately along the stem, and their shape is mostly linear, which means long and narrow. Additionally, these leaves are exstipulate, so they lack stipules, which are small leaf-like appendages at the base of the leaf stalk. The venation in these leaves is parallel, a key feature often seen in monocots. When we look at these vegetative characteristics together, they help us identify and understand the adaptations of these plants, especially their ability to survive and thrive underground and in various conditions. This is all part of the broader theme of plant adaptations and structural features that support perennial growth. Let's take a closer look at the fruit structure here. Most of these plants produce a capsule, which is quite common, but occasionally you'll find a berry instead. When it comes to the flower itself, notice that the tepal, which is the outer floral envelope, usually appears in 6 parts organized as 3+3, and these tepals are often united into a tube. The estivation, or the way the floral parts are arranged in the bud, is valvate, meaning the tepals just touch at the edges without overlapping. Moving to the perianth, it's tricapillary, indicating 3 distinct parts, and its syncarpous, meaning the carpels are fused together. The ovary sits above the other floral parts, making it superior, and it's trilocular, so it has 3 chambers, each containing many ovules. The placentation is axile, with ovules attached to a central axis within each chamber. The gynoecium, or female reproductive part, is bisexual and actinomorphic, which means it's radially symmetrical and can be divided into similar halves in multiple planes. In terms of the flower's stamens, there are 6, arranged in a 3+3 pattern, providing a balanced structure. The androecium, or male part, can be solitary or arranged in cymose clusters, and often these are in the form of umbellate clusters, giving the flower a somewhat umbrella-like appearance. Finally, the inflorescence structure varies, but often presents these floral characters in a way that emphasizes symmetry and organized arrangement, which plays a significant role in pollination strategies and overall floral display. These features collectively help us understand the plant's reproductive strategies and how it interacts with its environment. Many plants in this family are quite versatile and valuable to us. For example, some, like tulips and gloriosa, are excellent ornamental plants that add beauty to gardens and landscapes. Others, such as aloe, are important sources of medicine, known for their healing properties. And then there are vegetables like asparagus, which are not only nutritious but also economically significant. These diverse uses highlight the economic importance of this plant family. When we look at floral characters, it's interesting to see how their unique features contribute to their roles, whether in decoration, medicine, or food. Overall, these plants demonstrate the wide-ranging significance of this family, both culturally and economically, tying back to our broader theme of plant diversity and usefulness.